मगर ये देश रहना चाहिए, इस देश का लोकतंत्र में रहना चाहिए.
You can do one Mumbai, you may lose Baluchistan.
2, 1, 0. S139 mortar.
This man is a horrible man. He must be shunned.
To count. Our job is to hit the target, not to count the body bags.
Good evening, sir. Welcome back to the show once again. Nice to host both of us today once again.
Show, and it is coming on both our channels, so we both are host and guest. So
Yes.
great to see you again. Yeah.
Yes. So, sir, I think one of the things that we are discussing today is the kind of projection that people have been doing on India, that only there are some negative things about India, but nobody else is there. So, like, let's try to dispel some of the myths. Like, there are, the kind of criticism which is applicable to people from all places, but they are generally not aware, or it's not part of the mainstream narrative.
So what I understand, we're discussing on the social order today, right?
That's right.
Social order
So we
of
will.
various, organizations or countries.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So let's begin, right? So okay, so-called caste hierarchies or social orders which are present in different societies, and this is to show that this is a feature of almost all civilizations that we are talking about, right? So this is from little bit from memes, some of this is from X, and some of this is from news publications, right? So let's proceed. So from this. Okay, our dear neighbor China, who is presently trying to accuse others that, oh, there is a lot of caste problem in India or whatever. They are trying to accuse, and they are putting narrative, but I don't think that people have realized that there is something called Chinese caste also, or there is so ancient social order which has been present since in their system of the imperial Chinese. So if we look at this, in the very beginning, uh, right here, yeah. So the emperor is the supreme, which is probably today's equivalent of the president of China, or the premier of China, and then followed by the scholars and the gentry, and then the farmers, the artisans, and then the merchants, which are the Shi, Nong, Gong, and Shang, and then the outcast of society called as a Jianmin. Like, these are the different categories, and these have been compiled from global times itself. So one cannot say that it does not exist. This is something based on their own information. Okay. So on the next front, right? Uh, what is the modern Chinese caste system? That then people will say, oh, that used to be in the past. But then today you will see that urban Hukou is there, then rural Hukou is there. So based on which Hukou system, or it's like an internal passport in China. So on basis of which your family qualifies, you get access to city, school, healthcare, and many other things like that in China, which are present. And you may not get the best quality if you belong to a rural province where your Hukou is a rural Hukou, right? So you are not allowed to migrate and change. That's very difficult. It does not happen. And then the CCP elite are totally different. They have their own network of influence, and it's totally different.
So if you are part of the party, then only you're an elite. Huh?
Yes.
And if you see the first bullet down, it says it restricts rural to urban migration. Basically, they don't want people to migrate from rural to urban areas, and basically denying the
So
migrant
they don't want people to do
urban
urban
schools and
mass
healthcare.
migration.
Yeah, healthcare and housing subsidies. They don't want that. That's why they've told them you all are rural people and you have no right in the urban areas.
You will see that based on that, CCP membership is the way for people to become the elite part of society once they are successful, once they are educated. So if we
this
go
is
to the next
also
one.
segregation of society via caste system.
Yes.
Denying the right.
So now let's talk about Europe, right? So Europe is also not very different. So even they have hierarchy. They have the states of the realm. Europe is very famous for having monarchies, even existing till today, maybe in a slightly different form, but still existing. So there are the people who are the clergy, who are the orators. Then you have the nobility who are fighting for political power, who are the bellators, and then the commoners who are also called as the laborators, and which are the people who are actually like fighting and for their life in terms of the work. So they are the people who pay maximum number of taxes and stuff like that. So the commoners pay 98% of all the taxes, but are the most worse off in society. That is
Yes.
visible here. So if you see, this is a feature of different societies throughout history. So, but European caste system, sure, I think that is not really to say that it does not exist. Like the first and second estates were like exempt from any kind of taxes, right? So much of the privilege for passing on things or inheritance was or the exceptions was meant for the ruling class. And then the nobles had most of the land, they were controlling most of the land. And as per your estate or how much land you are owning, you have the right to do the voting. So, meaning 98% of people cannot be represented in society because they don't have land. Okay. And then the peasants or the people who are the laborers, they are tied to the land. They are serfs, and they cannot escape the land because they are having some kind of forced labor. So this used to be a case before. In fact, all of these things led in 1789 to the French Revolution, which is what everybody had a argument debate about. That when the I think Marie Antoinette, they when she said like, "Oh, let them eat cake," like it was such
But if
a
there is no bread, then why don't you eat cake? Yeah, that
yes.
was the
Yes, that was the
statement.
line, right? So
Yeah.
then, that was something very out of touch that she had said for that time.
We did not
Where,
know the reality of the commoners, yeah, how they're
yes,
living.
yes. So, this is a feature of many societies from before. And then
Mm.
the American caste system, so called. So in America, it seems like race is the actual caste rather than anything else. Like you had a situation of all these different times. According to Wilkerson, race is the invisible or the visible agent of caste in America. And I'm using the word caste here, but this is the easiest way to explain it. But in Indian context, it's called varna. But let's proceed. So, what is the legal architecture that encoded this, status hierarchy in the past, right? So, you had a situation where, people across races were not allowed to marry. You had a situation where there was segregation up till 1960s, where you had Dr. King, who was trying to fight for civil rights, and they were parading and marching so that they will be able to get their protections, so that equal treatment is possible for everybody, regardless of where you are. So, the idea that one should be treated on the basis of the character and not on the basis of the race had come out of the civil rights movement during the end of the Jim Crow times, right? But the history has been the case that America has been a racist society in the past, and things have like drastically changed since then. But one cannot say that it did not exist or does not silently exist today. So
Okay.
even there was a situation where there were lynchings. One can say that it is silently like a race-based caste system which is happening. But again, all of these things are different. In fact, the during the Third Reich, the Nazi officials were studying these segregation laws when they were drafting all kinds of 1935 laws during actually preceding World War II, I would say, which really led to the framework for that kind of segregation or race based theory that they had in that past.
Okay.
Okay, so what next, right? So everybody had a ladder, like people debated, and you had the situation where there were marriage restrictions traditionally once. You had occupation locks that you cannot move between different places, and you had guilds. You had different kinds of restrictions for jobs, and there were always all kind of outcast groups present throughout society. And then most people like to say that, okay, in the modern era it's just Hukou, like it doesn't matter, it's a normal thing. Or in Europe maybe they will say, oh, feudalism, we finished that long time back, like 1789, that's it, we are done, like we signed the Magna Carta and that's it, like we are to in the new era, and this is not going to happen. America says, oh, we had racism but not caste. But isn't that roughly the same what they are trying to accuse us of, or
Mm.
accusing of, for that matter? So then if we look at it, what's the next one, right? So uh, looking at the projection, right? So what people say, oh, but then India's caste system is X or Y or Z. And then they deny that their own hierarchy in the particular society did not exist, like, as if Hukou isn't caste, or feudalism is over. Even those wealth based barriers do exist because of the past things that
No, I,
happened.
I just want to just break in and give you more explanation on point number one. So I believe there was no caste system in India. We had a Varn system. So there were four Varns like Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And this is not as per your birth. This is as per your type of work. If your work is related to reading and scholarly activities, then you're a Brahmin. If your work is related, you've taken a profession which leads to fighting and protecting your motherland, then you're a Kshatriya. If your work relates to doing business or doing some transactional jobs, then you're a Vaishya. And if your work is related, your profession is related to maintaining the area, maintaining the village, or maintaining doing the maintenance work, then you are a Shudra. So this is as per your profession, your work, and that does not qualify, or that is not decided by your birth. So a Brahmin's son can be a Kshatriya if he chooses to be in the fighting clan, or a Kshatriya son can be a Vaishya, or a Brahmin son can be a Shudra if he decides to go for the community activities and cleaning activities. So this was being run, but the Britishers couldn't understand this thing, and they put this caste, or the Portuguese word caste system, which they were following, a racism, into Indian context. And our history books are filled with this concept that, okay, India has a caste system which is very divisional, and it is very bad for the society. So this is my input on this slide.
Definitely. And they never mention like Jim Crow, or they don't mention estates, or they don't mention their past. In fact, they go ahead and declare that they are victorious on X. In fact, the Chinese university say that if we bring everybody down to our level, then whatever we have is a mess, doesn't look so bad anyhow, right? So it's like a kind of appearance, or saving face, that the Chinese are very well known for, that they like to save face.
And Chinese have a high degree of arrogance, and they hide many things, and they think their civilization is the most supreme civilization, not analyzing the drawbacks in their society and trying to improve it. They just hide it under the carpet and say what we do is the best. Vis-a-vis compared to the Indian civilization, where we accept our shortcomings, and we try to improve it, and move on with the society.
Correct. And then, towards the very end, like, these are some of the citations that we used to explain. And then, much of the stuff we have gotten fact checked through through Grokipedia, and then which is monitored by Humanitors, as well as the Global Times, sources, and the India Today as well. So, a lot of these things are being discussed in the day to day, where, in my opinion, this is a problem has been throughout the society, different places in the world, and the social order is going to be a thing or a feature, as long as there is an imbalance in power between people. So this is a natural dynamic of the world. In my opinion, that is the case. What do you say, sir?
Yes. I think you're correct. And actually, one has to understand the civilization before commenting on the civilization. Till the time staying away, even many of our historians over the years, in the early stages of our freedom, that they've seen our Sanatan Dharma in a very different filter. And that's why the historical corrections are taking place. So, caste system is not exactly put the way it is over the world.
Definitely. And the reason for making this video is so that the narrative is set straight, and we understand, that the audience understands that it is not the fact that, oh, we are trying to say X, Y, or Z. We are saying that this has been a feature throughout history, throughout society, and blaming it on one particular thing as narrative or as targeting is not fair. So that's the intent of the podcast.
Yes.
But sir, I think this concludes the first one that we have planned for today. So thank you, audience. Thank you for tuning into this particular video. So Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.